There are movies you watch once and then forget, and there are movies that live rent-free in your head forever. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly belongs in the second category. The 1966 classic wasn't just about gunslingers and gold. Fans call it the greatest spaghetti western ever made, and for good reason. It's the western that defined the genre. But the real gold lies behind the camera. The stories from the set are wild, hilarious, and sometimes downright dangerous. Let's dive into 10 behind-the-scenes secrets from Good, Bad, and Ugly you didn't know. First, let's get into the story. 1. Improvised part of the Dollars trilogy. Before The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, Leone had already made 2 hits. A Fistful of Dollars and For a Few Dollars More. There was to be a third, and together, these films came to be called the Dollars trilogy. But did you know that when Leone sat down to pitch the third film, he didn't even have a full story? At a meeting with producer Alberto Grimaldi and other executives for $900,000 for American rights, Leone showed up and showed out. He improvised the idea of 3 men racing for hidden gold during the Civil War. He sketched the premise right there on the spot. And what started as an off-the-cuff pitch grew into one of the most legendary westerns ever filmed. The next secret shows that not everyone can sense the gold we all watched.
She's a fresh young whore in the territory. Where's she?
2. Clint Eastwood didn't want to do the movie. Clint Eastwood had already worked with Leone twice before, and the movies were successful. But Clint wasn't exactly eager to come back for a third round. He felt underpaid, felt slightly insecure being next to 2 other big names, and thought Leone's chaotic filming style was exhausting. In fact, Clint only agreed to do The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly after receiving a hefty pay increase plus a percentage of the profits. Because Leone really wanted to work with Clint, production was placed on hold until he was satisfied with the terms. Clint walked away with a $250,000 salary and 10% profits. His salary alone was more than the entire film budget. It's funny to imagine now because the film ended up cementing Clint Eastwood's man with no name status forever. Without it, his Hollywood career might have looked very different. But while Eastwood hesitated, another star jumped into the project after seeing only a glimpse of Leone's work.
Oh no, wait, not you. You remain tied.
3. Eli Wallach only needed a few minutes of Leone's earlier films. Eli Wallach wasn't sure what to make of the spaghetti western craze until he saw just a few minutes of Leone's earlier films in the trilogy. The intensity of the camera work and the raw energy sold him immediately. According to reports, he told the projectionist to stop the gill because he had seen enough. That was it. Eli signed on as Tuco and ended up stealing nearly every scene he was in. His mix of humor, menace, and desperation made Tuco one of the most unforgettable characters in Western history. But agreeing to the role was the easy bit. Once he got to set, Eli discovered another strange challenge. The actors couldn't even understand each other half the time. 4. Actors spoke different languages on set and nearly everything was dubbed later. Leone's sets were like mini United Nations meetings. Clint Eastwood spoke English. Eli Wallach spoke English and Yiddish. Lee Van Cleef was American. Leone and most of the crew spoke Italian. Many extras were Spanish. Everyone needed translators. But in the end, the cast often delivered their lines in their native tongues, knowing they would be dubbed later in post-production. That's why if you watch closely, the lip movements don't always match the dialogue. The magic of dubbing tied it all together, and the mix somehow adds to the movie's dreamy, surreal quality. And speaking of surreal, nothing was more bizarre than what happened with the film's most expensive stunt, the exploding bridge. 5. The bridge demolition almost happened off-camera, by mistake. One of the film's biggest scenes shows a bridge being blown to pieces. It was when Blondie, played by Clint Eastwood, and Tuco, played by Eli Wallach, decide to blow up the bridge that leads to the cemetery where they believe the gold they seek is buried. To pull this off, Leone enlisted hundreds of the Spanish army. The soldiers built the bridge and rigged it with real explosives. But here's the kicker. Due to a miscommunication, the army blew up the bridge before the cameras were rolling. Everyone panicked. A whole expensive set had just gone up in smoke with nothing to show for it. Luckily, the army agreed to rebuild the bridge, and Leone finally got his explosive shot. Imagine the stress of losing your biggest scene because of a misunderstood signal. But while bridges blew up in the distance, Eastwood was facing a much smaller but very personal enemy: his cigars.
Known as the Rat.
6. Eastwood hated his cigars. Clint Eastwood looked effortlessly cool, chomping on those little cigars as Blondie, but behind the scenes, he hated them. The cheap cigars Leone gave to him tasted awful, and smoking take after take left him nauseous. He probably regretted taking the role after all. Clint later admitted that by the end of filming, he couldn't stand the sight of them. Yet those cigars became an iconic part of his character's image. Sometimes the things actors hate most are what fans love forever. Eli Wallach, however, had bigger problems than bad cigars, and his problems nearly killed him.
No pistol, amigo. It won't do you any good.
7. Wallach was almost seriously injured. 3 times. Eli Wallach's stories from the set sound like an actual survival manual. Once, during a train stunt, his head missed being decapitated by inches. Another time, he was dragged on a runaway horse with his hands tied. And then there was the scene where he had to drink from a bottle that actually contained acid. Thankfully, he didn't swallow it. Wallach later joked that the set was the most dangerous place in the world. It's a miracle he made it out alive, and his accidents have become legendary among film fans. With a masterpiece like The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, even the director himself wasn't safe from mishaps. On to number 8.
5 for me.
8. Leone hit himself in the groin while demonstrating how Tuco should reach. Sergio Leone was a very physical director. Since he didn't speak much English, he often acted out scenes to show his actors exactly what he wanted. In one hilarious case, he demonstrated how Tuco should reach for his gun with dramatic flair, but in the process, he hit himself in the groin. The crew burst into laughter, and Leone had to laugh too, despite the pain. He ended up changing his mind about the stunt. It was just one more example of how much passion and near-emergency visits went into making this Western. But if Leone's clumsiness was funny, the actual stunts were no joke. Safety on set was a whole different story. 9. There were real safety compromises on horse and train stunts. Unlike today's Hollywood productions with endless safety checks, the 1960s spaghetti Western sets were rough and tumble. Horses bolted, explosions went off too close, and actors did stunts with minimal protection. Clint Eastwood, Eli Wallach, and Van Cleef all worked in conditions that would make modern insurance agents faint. The upside is that the action feels raw and authentic. The downside? The actors risked their lives for it. Watching Tuco, the character, nearly die under a moving train is tense, partly because, well, Eli Wallach, the actor, nearly did. And all this danger built up to one of the safest, most controlled things in the entire film. That's the editing of the final showdown. 10. The film's famous three-way standoff was edited like a musical crescendo. The climax of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is the Mexican standoff scene at Sad Hill Cemetery, but the star of the show was the pure cinematic music. Leone and his editor cut the scene with rhythm in mind. The sequence builds slowly, wide shots, then closer shots, then extreme close-ups of eyes and hands. The tension rises in sync with Morricone's score until the gunfire explodes like a crashing cymbal. Leone treated editing like composing, turning 3 men standing still into one of the most thrilling moments in film history. That final standoff is why the movie still gets called a masterpiece half a century later. Movies like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly remind us how timeless cinema can be. And if you're in the mood for something a little darker, don't miss our video on the 10 scariest movies from the 90s. But that's it on the behind-the-scenes secrets of The Good, the Bad, and Ugly. The story of 3 outlaws in a dusty desert that gave us an epic about greed, survival, and style. Do you have more to share? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more Cinephile. Until next time, stay iconic.